Welcome to Cracking Cancer, where we tackle the tough questions about cancer with real patients and world experts. Our mission is to empower the cancer community through education, bring transparency to the oncology system, and drive funding for critical cancer research. Whether you're facing a diagnosis, supporting a loved one, or simply here to learn, we're here to bring clarity, hope, and action to the fight against cancer. Hey everyone, welcome to Cracking Cancer. I am your host, Dr. Kyle Concannon. I'm a physician scientist at the University of Colorado, and joining me today is Sara Sandoval.
Hi, Kyle. My name is Sarah, and I am a stage 4 metastatic breast cancer patient. Happy to be on the show today. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us. And today we're talking about a topic that not a lot of people discuss in, I would say, oncology care, but is something that's really impactful, meaningful to a lot of people, and that is where their faith fits in. Where is God in cancer? And I think this is a topic that a lot of people walk on eggshells on. I think when I'm in the clinic, I notice it. But it's such a powerful thing for so many people that I want to have a conversation about it and figure out where it fits in individuals' lives. And, how do we discuss that a little more openly for those in which it is impactful? So Sarah, we wanted to have you on because you're a practicing Catholic. I myself am Catholic, so it at least helps us have a similar language as we're talking. Well, I in no way want to be convincing other people or converting people to our religion or saying you need to have religion to have meaningful, good outcomes in oncology. But I'm interested to hear your experience using your faith throughout your cancer diagnosis. So maybe we'll just start by asking, Sarah, where does your faith, how do we articulate this? Where does your faith play? What part does your faith play in your cancer?
Yeah. So I would say it definitely came full circle for me. It's kind of like a full circle moment. When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, it takes a toll on you. So you are being delivered this news, bad news after bad news after bad news, and you are trying to make sense of it all. You're trying to figure out, why is this happening to me? Why am I diagnosed with cancer so young? 2, why am I diagnosed with metastatic cancer so young? And you can't make sense of it. And so you're getting blow after blow with some of these results. And I had to take a step back, and I'm just like, I had to give myself over to whatever higher power that I believed in. And once I really started to do that, I saw some of the things change in my own personal story. I started to get a little bit better news, baby step after baby step after baby step. One, it started with, okay, I had to go in for my bone scan. Is this bone scan going to deliver cancer? I would sit there, I would pray, I would say my prayers, and lo and behold, that was the first great scan that I got back. And ever since then, I have steadily, increasingly gotten better scans, better results. And so I kind of just had to give myself over to my higher power. And that's when I started to notice a difference.
So I'm curious, I think people incorporate their faith into the things that are out of their control in many different ways. And some ways are they will pray to a certain outcome, like I want to have good scans, I want the cancer to go away. And some will pray for, I would say, an internal ability to navigate challenging situations, not necessarily expecting prayer to, I guess, have a physical manifestation of change like externally. Like they don't necessarily expect the scans to get better. Where would you say your prayer landed in that spectrum of I'm praying for a particular outcome or I'm praying for ability to cope with the things that life throws me?
So I'll put it bluntly. My 100-year-old grandma, may she rest in peace, she told me very specifically, Sarah, you got to ask what you want for. And so, and to your point, I'm not asking for good scans. I'm not asking for various things that come along with that. I'm telling, and I'm praying to God, to whoever's listening to me, what I want. And so I take that approach, and it's stuck with me. So not only do I asked specifically, I want really good bone scans. I need a PET scan that's clear, but I'm also showing how I'm grateful too. I'm speaking of, I'm thankful for modern day technology. I'm thankful for modern medicine. Thank you for what you have done for me. And so I'm just being very specific on what I want and what I need for me in my current journey right now.
Sure. And those who are, uh, we struggle to make generalities at all, but particularly in religion, because people experience, even within a specific faith, they might experience that religion very differently. And I'm curious your thoughts. Do you think your diagnosis of cancer was in some way intentional part of a greater plan? Or do you think that we have these things happen to us and you use your faith to cope? Like, where does God stand in the diagnosis, I suppose?
Well, my mom always tells me God won't give you anything more than you can handle. And looking back on my life, I'm trying to make sense of it all, to be honest with you. Like I've been I've been thrown some pretty hard blows in my life, and this obviously takes the cake of it all. I certainly hope this wasn't in my master plan. I hope God didn't look at me and said, "You know what? Sarah really needs stage 4 cancer." I hope that's not what was written in my book, but it is, and I have to deal with it. And so I am taking that, and it did bring me closer to my faith out of it all. I don't know how to answer that. I'm
No,
sorry.
it's an impossibly hard question.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
believe in a sense of order in the world, and that we like, we say that everything, happens for a reason, and it's really hard to navigate why bad things happen. I mean, this is a existential question of most religions
yeah,
that believe in, a deity that's all powerful. Is like, if you're all powerful and all good, why do bad things happen?
yeah,
And I think that question comes up all the time in cancer medicine for those who believe in a faith. And I guess that's just what I'm trying to figure out. Have you had active progress navigating that? What is fundamentally just an impossible question? People have thought about this for, millennia.
yeah,
Uh, what are
yeah,
your thoughts?
yeah. I don't know. I mean, there's got to be something to it, because I mean, more and more people are getting diagnosed with this, and so when you're seeing those staggering rates of especially young people getting diagnosed with it, like how can this be part of God's plan? Like why? That's the $1,000,000 question is why?
Yeah.
And my husband tells me I can't think of that way. I cannot think that way. You're here and you're present. You have to be thankful for what we're working with. We have to be thankful that um, we're getting the results that we need, specifically with stage 4 cancer. As you know, there's no remission for me. So, um, how do you let go and let God deal with that? It's tough. It's tough. It's not an easy walk. I really don't wish this on anybody, and I don't see a higher power, you know, delivering the sentence to somebody. I know certainly people don't ask for it, so maybe that's why I did turn to my faith is because I needed something to believe in, and I think that helps. I mean, it puts my mind at ease. Again, I express my gratitude for everything of where I was diagnosed from a year ago to where I'm at right now. I'm a completely different person. I think my faith has changed that for me. Um, and I conversation that I regularly have with God is my body is in your hands. I can't control anything that's happening with my body. Yes, there are treatments. Obviously, I go to treatment every 3 weeks for my particular cancer. There's medication that I have to take daily. Obviously, that plays a role in things, but my body and my will is given to God, and that helps me sleep at night. And that's what I have to go off of. Um, but maybe a good question. for you too is how have maybe you seen it? How has your faith and spirituality changed with like the line of work that you're doing in oncologist as an oncologist, and you're seeing people and patients like me come into your office, you're having those hard conversations with them. Spirituality maybe not come up in conversations that you are having day-to-day basis, but I'm sure you've seen it in some of your patients. How has that maybe changed your own beliefs?
Yeah, it's a good question. Patients do come into the oncology office, and we know from their demographic sheet if they're practicing a particular religion or not, and if they've disclosed that, which many people do. But if you see Christianity on there, or whatever, Judaism, whatever example of their faith, there's usually a spectrum around the degree to which they actively practice or believe in that. Many people are raised a certain way, and maybe they're not engaged or haven't been for a while. So I'll say, going in, seeing someone practices a given religion, it's hard to assume that the language of whatever that religion is going to really resonate with them. And many people may still be a little put off, I would say, or at least that's my concern.
Yeah.
So I don't go into a clinic visit, even if people practice the same religion as me, really showing that I'm a religious person. Most people wouldn't know that. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's something that is so powerful and meaningful for a lot of people. And it is the lens through which they view the world in a very real way, that I think we're probably missing some opportunity to connect, because I don't want to upset anybody. So I think there's probably room for improvement with me there. I'll say personally, we do see a lot of sad stuff. We do see really good people who have not met their full potential yet get this disease, and it's really hard to know what to make of that. I share your sense that we're given challenges and opportunities that tend to make us grow, and our role is to be servants to a greater cause. And that makes sense in my own life because I don't have a stage 4 cancer, but it's really hard to know, okay, I got this. Let's assume it's for a greater good. Now we find out what that greater good is. What am I meant to do? It's hard to reconcile that with a stage 4 cancer diagnosis when there's not a lot of time potentially to implement a positive change in the world that maybe you were meant to. So I struggle with that. I don't have a solution. I don't have an answer. I wouldn't say it makes me particularly doubt the role of God or my religion in the world because bad things happen. Rather, the role that God or religion plays is probably just not well understood by me. And I think, if anything, being a scientist trying to understand fundamental truths of cancer biology, of how disease processes work, I've been humbled by how little we understand about much of anything. The things we think we know are built on assumptions. And when you try to truly understand something to the ability where you can manipulate it and, for us, make therapies out of it, it is humbling how little we really understand. So for me, that almost reinforces, I would say, the belief that something else greater is at play that we don't understand. I mean, I can't understand one cell's biology, the ability for it to evade the therapies we give it, nonetheless, all this complexity of life. So I think I approach it, I suppose, with a strong humility and humbleness to say a lot of this is just out of my comprehension.
Yeah.
And when negative things happen, when I see really sad things, I suppose it's not my role to understand it through the religious lens.
I mean, honestly, how could you? I can go back to that day whenever I received that phone call of, hey, my PA called me and I was driving home from a scan for oh gosh, what was it? It was a breast MRI, I'm pretty sure. And that's the day that I found out that it had metastasized, and there's really nothing you could do. All I could do was just drop on my floor and scream. I've never even heard of came out of me. And when you're dealing with that as a stage 4 person, what else do you have to turn to? You have to turn to something. You have to turn to a higher power. You have to turn to God, whatever it is that you believe in, because that's the only thing that's going to soothe your thoughts, help you process everything. At least for me, I mean, how can you sit there and tell somebody at 35 years old, just starting their life, just married, getting ready to try to have a family, it's ripped off from you? What else do you have to turn to? You don't have anything. All I had was my religion. And being a practicing Catholic and knowing how strong my faith is, that's the only thing that I think honestly saved me a year ago.
So how did it save you? What are the feelings, the emotions that it soothed? What are the actions that it led to? Yeah,
Sure.
what happened?
Yeah. So I can speak to that as me being in active treatment, constantly getting scans every 3 months. This is how I really use that praying power, because you're sitting in these tubes, right? You're there for an hour, hour and a half, however long it takes to do your bone scans, to do your CT scans, to do your PET scans. And you're sitting in this tube and you have nothing. Sometimes they play music for you if you're lucky, but you're just sitting there in your thoughts. It's prime time for me to have those conversations with God, between me and my higher power. Um, and that's what gets me through that 60 minutes whenever I am just sitting there laying on a cold table with, oh my God, what's the scan going to be? Is there something going to pop back up? Is it there going to be reoccurrence? Is it spreading? These are exactly the thoughts that go through your mind when you're dealing with silence in a tube. It's not comfortable. Um, wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, to be honest with you. But that's the prime time that I have those hard conversations with God. I pray for those good, clean scan results. I pray for more time. I pray for the the family that was taken away from me, as soon as I got this diagnosis. I pray that I'm here for many, 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 many more years. And so it's only me and God, and that's really what I can hold on to. Um, some may think that's silly. Some may say you might be talking to yourself. That's perfectly fine too. But for me, that's what gives me hope. That's what gives me calmness. And I repeat those. I mean, I'm not. It's just not when I'm doing my scans. I wake up, I pray for gratitude, all the gratitude that I have. I go to bed with my husband. We pray that, thank you, God, for giving me an extra day. I pray that, and I know that I'm going to be here today. I know I'm going to be here tomorrow. But as I mentioned, you have to be very specific for what you want. I want years. I don't want tomorrow. I don't want the next day. I want to be here for years. I have a lot more to do on this earth. And that's what I ask God for.
So, and I get the sense that this gives a feeling of control of action in a situation that is otherwise really chaos. Is that the feeling you think it provides?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, because as you know, as an oncologist, a patient's life is chaotic. It is
Yeah.
so crazy. The amount of phone calls that we have to deal with in a day, the amount of my chart messages that you get, the amount of time that you have to go to the doctors just to speak to them, test results, scans, everything. It's pure chaos. And so, I mean, what else can you turn to? I mean, that's the only thing that makes me sane, to be honest with you, is uh it's pure chaos in my life, and you can't think about anything else other than cancer. At least I haven't thought about anything else. Every single day I think about cancer. And so that's why it's important for me to have those conversations with God, and just ask for clarity, give me peace of mind, give me more time.
And how our faith helps us is somewhat amorphous because it's not something that we've sat down and ironed out with a pen and paper and created rules around. A lot of times we go through the steps of our religion and we go through our habits, our practices, our rituals, and we feel better. And it's not clear at least to me, it's not clear the mechanism by which me doing this, me following this routine, me engaging in my faith in this particular way provides solace, but I could say it does. And I think that's a really hard thing for someone in an academic scientific community to reconcile with a faith-based community, is that the rules that apply to academics don't always necessarily apply to religion, or at least the groundwork in which we've used to study the physical manifestations of this world, they don't always work in religion. I think the fundamental, or I should say, the foundational assumptions fail. And I can tell you, in my practice, there's a lot of ambiguity in my life. We care about patients. We want them to do well. We prescribe things. We're doing the best we can, but we're human. We don't know, and I work in research, and uh, there's a lot of risk in research, and we don't know that this stuff is going to work out. And it's really hard because you're putting yourself out there, you're trying your best, and this ambiguity across the patients you're trying to help, the research you're trying to do to promote cures, or help people live longer, more fulfilled lives, all of it is percentages and chances. So you really don't know how it's going to play out. So we have to, I guess, push ourselves to, or at least for me, I rely on my faith to provide a little bit of solace, a little bit of steadiness to say, your role is to follow these guidelines. And for me, the guidelines are things that, we have in our gospels. These are the rules, or the habits that one should do. And if I summed them up, it would be the best servant to other people you can be. And it's like, if I follow that, then I'm doing the best I can within the context of my life, and the rest is going to fall where it falls. So to me, my prayer and my religion leads to solace and steadiness because it provides me a North Star. And otherwise, the world is, in my sense, chaos if you don't have a really clear sense of what to do. And at least if you're doing the things that I think are moral, right, are the objectively true way that I'm supposed to be living my life, if I'm doing that, you know, that's studying as hard as you could for the test. That's practicing as hard as you could for your sports game. Like, it's doing the best you can, and the results are going to be the results. But at that point, it's out of your hands, and you can rest easy because there's nothing more you could do. So
Yeah.
that's, I think, where my religion follows me with my patients, with my work, is that it provides that North Star, the guidance. And then I have to trust that everything's going to be okay after that. And okay may not mean good for me right now.
Makes a lot of sense. And to your point, I mean, that's kind of exactly what I do. The results are going to be the results, like you mentioned. At that point, that's where I follow, let go, and let God, because as I mentioned, I've given myself over to God. There's nothing else I can do physically more than what I'm already doing, in terms of my treatment, in terms of everything else. It's in it's out of my hands. I can't change anything. I have this diagnosis now. Um, all I can do is ask. All I can do is follow my North Star. And it's funny, I don't necessarily follow, the rules of Catholicism. I'm a practicing Catholic, but there's so many things that have changed. But if there's a church right down the street, sometimes I go to my chapel, and I pray before those test results and things like that, and that's okay. Like, you don't have to follow those rules of religions to have a conversation with a higher power or the God, and that's okay too. Um, just just start asking, just start talking, and just start asking for what you want. And that's kind of how I follow my compass. My faith compass, I would say.
So for those who maybe haven't been raised in a religious background and they're hit with a new diagnosis, they're feeling, a sense of spirituality around it, but they don't know how to apply that. What does praying look like to you? How do you talk to God?
Yeah, I again, I think it's just really having conversations. Yeah, yes, with a Catholic background, you do certain things.
Yep.
You sign the cross. Sometimes you might throw in an extra kiss for extra luck there. But it's just conversations. If you don't know where to start, just start talking about what you want, what you need, um, what that looks like, what you want in the future, um, and just start letting go. I have those conversations like as if I'm writing in the diary. I have those
Mhm.
conversations in the shower. I have them on my drive to and from stores, to and from the hospital. You don't have to sit at the end of your bed and pray to God. You can do it anywhere. So just start talking. Whenever you feel the need to get something off of your chest, or you have anxiety or whatever it may be, just start talking what's in your heart. That's all that matters. That's all that you have to do. Just start having those conversations.
So when you're talking to God, I'm curious, what does it look like for God to talk back?
So that's a tough one because you're not talking to somebody like you and I are talking right now. There isn't really a response that may be um, a physical response that you can actually hear from talking to God, but it shows up in different ways. Um, when I'm asking for something very spiritual, sometimes I get goosebumps all over my body. As soon as I ask for whatever it is I'm praying for. Um, it can show up in a variety of ways. It can show up in movies. It might show up in a particular song. Um, so you're not going to get the answer like in a normal conversation, but there'll be signs. I see signs everywhere. Um, I was getting my liver biopsy whenever I first got the diagnosis that it had metastasis to my liver, and I was sitting in the hospital room, and they're telling me, hey, it might not be cancer. I knew it was cancer. And I'm distraught. I'm just sitting there crying my eyes out in the waiting room, waiting to hear my name to get called back to again go do another biopsy. Um, and this woman is sitting over in this corner. Don't know her name, don't know where she came from. She just there. And she comes over and she hands me this medallion. And I'm praying, I'm like saying in my head, like, God, please, obviously I don't want this to be cancer. But she comes over and she gives me this medallion and she tells me everything's gonna be all right. Is that ironic? I don't think so. Like she gives this to me and she says, "You need this more than I do." And I take that medallion with me every single scan that I go to now, and I've had good scans ever since it, believe it or not. But um, he shows up in mysterious ways, and I want to say that that's a blessing. I view that as a blessing. I needed to hear what she told me during that particular time, and I asked for a sign, and he showed up and he delivered.
So what was the medallion?
It's a faith-based medallion. It has a saint on it. And so um I wear my crucifixes all the time. I have my cross here. I have my Mary medallion. These never come off. These were blessed by priests in the Catholic Church for me. I got this over whenever I was in Rome. And so having medallions like that um are very near and dear to me. And I am a person of habit. So like anything that means something to me or is special in that case in point, that religious medallion meant something to me and I took it as a sign. And so when I have little things like that pop up, I always bring them with me to everywhere that I go in terms of my cancer treatment. Because if I don't bring that medallion and I go to a scan and it's bad results, I'm going to automatically go to, well, I should have brought that day. Why didn't I bring that? And now my mind's spiraling.
Yeah.
So, it's just a little token that I took from, God needed me to hear this message. And so it goes with me everywhere now. It
Wow.
stays in my purse. Yeah.
So you're speaking to something where someone from a religious community interacted with you and supported you in a way that was really meaningful. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Has the religious community interacted with you in other ways of support?
I don't know how to answer this.
It's okay if they haven't. I think
Yeah.
people rely on the reason I ask is people rely on the religious community in various ways.
Yeah.
So some people have their close knit group of people, and religious communities tend to be very close, uh, which is a big appeal for a lot of people that are in them. And I'll say, even at least in the Catholic faith, a lot of people who are not particularly Catholic will go to church, integrate into the community because it's a strong community. It's people that support each other, people who are going to offer their homes, that are going to do the meal stuff. And you don't have to know them to show up and be integrated. And you can be frank and say, oh, I'm not really sure I believe this, but I'm here giving it a shot. And they'll treat you the same. So that's all. I just wanted to hear if you had integrated into any of those things, because I've interacted with patients where you can plug into an online community, and that's really helpful. That's really good. If you're not aware, look up the patient advocacy organizations that are in your, area, in your tumor type, or whatever might be helpful for you. And those are remote. They provide a lot of assistance, but some of the in-person pragmatic stuff, like childcare, someone to help with meals, someone to help drive you places. There's a lot of people in religious communities who find it as their personal vocation to dedicate their lives to those who are undergoing suffering.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I was trying to get at. But if you're in a place, you're already plugged in and you don't need those resources, not everyone will engage in that. But I think that's a positive element of religious communities. And I'm speaking to Catholicism because that's the one I'm in and I know, but I know this is true across many religious communities. And there's hesitancy for people to engage in that because they don't want to be, I think, pushed toward indoctrination and practicing things they don't necessarily believe. But I would say that these religious groups are full of people that are trying to do good things. It's their North Star is doing the best things they can for other people. And I'll say in our community, there is I would say an archetype of goodness is doing good things for people you don't know.
Yeah.
And you to provide them that opportunity is actually meaningful for them too.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say there's a lot of churches out there that community is very, very strong, and they come together and they will pull through. Um, you know, does this person need a meal? They're going to deliver the meals for them. To your point, do they need childcare? How can we step up and help that individual out? I don't have that community personally. You know, I haven't been really active in a particular Catholic church since high school, to be honest with you. And I think that's where that full circle is starting to come around for me, is that, oh my God, I've been hit with this bad diagnosis. I kind of lost my faith for 10 plus years, right? And now I'm turning and I'm asking for all of these things, these miracles to happen to me, right? But how is he going to deliver whenever I haven't even been really active in a community like that, or showing up to church, or whatever it may be? But I want to make this very clear. You don't have to do that to have a relationship with God or a higher power either. And that's kind of where I lay now. I mean, I went to church every single Sunday. There's times where I would be playing in softball tournaments and I still had to go to church on Sunday before we went to softball, right? And so when I was a little free in the world, I didn't necessarily turn to my religion because I'm out there in college having fun and living my life and doing whatever I was doing. And now you're hit with a hard dose of reality. And who do you turn to? I ran back right to my religion, right? And although I may not be in church every single Sunday, I still have that connection with my faith in that higher power. And I can see it working in real time right in front of my face, right? So again, I do want to stress that even though you're not in church every single Sunday or whatever day of the week that you go to church, doesn't mean that you can't be religious and doesn't mean that you don't have faith. You can still have all of that without being under um, a church roof. So I think that's really important to to speak about and just to kind of get out there because I think people think that you do have to go every single Sunday. You have to show up and show out, but that's faith is just talking, as I mentioned, having those conversations. And I think it's really important to stress that.
Well, I appreciate you opening up about that dynamic and that situation over time, because that's what I experienced something really similar where you were raised in a particular faith, you have your freedom and autonomy, it slips away. And then, at some point something happens and you re-engage. And I think there's a lot of people where that certain something is a cancer diagnosis. There's a lot of people who had either spirituality or religious elements to their identity at one point, and then something this big happens and they re-engage and they find meaning in that re-engagement. And I'm curious, there are people when something really tragic happens and they've distanced themselves from their faith or religion that say this is why that's not true, because bad things happen to good people. And then there's people that say that double into it and use it as a source of strength. And I'm not here to cast judgment on anybody, but those are phenotypes that I've seen. Those are responses I've seen. And I don't blame anyone for feeling that way. But you experienced a stage 4 cancer diagnosis, and that made you closer to your faith, not further. And I'm curious if you can speak to that at all. I mean, did you have those sentiments in the beginning that, God can't be real, this happened to me, and how did you navigate that if you did?
I never lost my faith in God. I might not have prayed. I might not have been doing all the things that, maybe a good Catholic woman would do. But I do want to make it very clear that I've never lost faith in God. Um, did I want this diagnosis? No. But I've also seen it firsthand with my husband as well. He grew up Catholic like we did, refused, didn't believe in the church's ways. And he's really the person that has done a full circle with my particular diagnosis. I've seen that man pray. I've seen his faith be restored. And honestly, it's a really beautiful thing to see. And I get emotional about it because I know the hardships that he has gone through, and for him to sit down there and pray with me every single night and have him pray whenever he's going to his work or whatever, it's really beautiful thing to see, because we can see it in how we interact and how we live our lives now. It's different. It's completely different than pre-cancer and post-cancer diagnosis. And it's just really, really beautiful. And we're very thankful for everything that we are receiving now after we've dove back into our faith and spirituality. And we're very, very blessed. We know our time together may be limited, and just to be able to bond over that and to see it come into fruition is a beautiful thing. So sorry I got emotional about that, but it's my husband is a very strong man, and I just never thought I would see his faith be restored again, and it has been.
But you've also mentioned something where you're mentioning, I guess, a bit of a routine that your husband's gotten into, you've gotten into together. And one thing that I've heard other people mention is that religion can integrate structure in an otherwise unstructured, chaotic life. Do you think that the structure that religion offers has helped you in a way? If not, that's okay. I can speak to it too.
Yeah, I mean, the structure of having something to look forward to every single day, I think does help a little bit. I mean, as I mentioned, I wake up, I say what I'm grateful for. I go to bed, I say what I'm thankful for another day, thankful for everything that was given to me. So having those into my daily routine, I think does help and provide the structure that is needed for the chaos of cancer. Um, but yeah, I'm curious what you see in your patients and how maybe that structure may help them throughout this whole process.
Yeah, piggybacking on what you were mentioning earlier, there's a large spectrum of how people integrate their faith into their cancer treatment, their cancer plans. I think there are individuals who are, generally spiritual and they think that there is a pattern and there's a plan. And then there are people who are probably fit into this more structured category that you're talking about, where you'll go into the room and they're doing a prayer circle and they'll have people zooming in and those people will be joining them in prayer. And those prayers are also on a spectrum, what people tend to be asking for. And some of it is they're requesting a certain outcome. And some of it is they're requesting the ability to cope with whatever life throws at them. So I think they're huge spectrum and people find value everywhere along that spectrum. And I'm not saying you have to be religious to benefit from those things. I think the religion offers people a structured format in which to do that, in which to come together and have that support. So I think that's a helpful element for those who, are in a practicing community, and those who are not in a practicing community. There's probably lessons to be learned on how to cope with things. If you're not doing some of those things, it's probably worth thinking about that maybe it would help you having a group that comes together, having particular times in the daytime that you focus on your challenges. I think something you mentioned where at multiple points during the day, you think about what you're grateful for. And that's something that I think is helpful in my life and in patients' lives because you're going to view the world through the lens that you view it through. If you're always thinking about what you're thankful for, then you're generally going to be a more thankful, positive minded person. If you find yourself in the rut, which many people do, and no blame for this, particularly in the cancer community, where it's, why did this happen to me? You know, how am I going to cope with this? What's going to happen in the future? This is negative. Everything's terrible. You have every right in the world to feel that way. But you do have to keep going. Tomorrow has to come. And I think the religious lens offers a way to see the challenges in this world through the most positive light one could. And I think when you're in that much darkness, it can be helpful. And that's what I've seen in the patients I've seen is in their darkest times when I'm delivering news of progression, when they're initially diagnosed and they want to hear more than anything that this really isn't cancer, but I have to tell them that it is. They come together and they try to find the positive lens through their religion in which gives them the strength to continue. Because the pit of despair is pretty deep. It's pretty deep, and no one blames you for falling in. Um, but the way out is through, and religion offers a pathway, I think, for a lot of people, and the support group for a lot of people to walk that path and find a way forward.
It almost feels sometimes like faith and religion is kind of like an extra security for you too.
Mhm.
I've had people dedicate masses to me. I have had people send me cards. There's people that send me cards every single week almost of prayers and for me to read prayers that they have given to me in those cards and letting me know that they're thinking of me, they're praying for me. And so um it's almost like a security blanket that you can rely on of like, wow, man, I feel really safe right now. I feel protected. I
Yeah.
feel protected with all of these prayers and all of these close friends and family coming together and just speaking it into existence for me too. And so that's one thing when I do go through my prayer list is I always make sure to tell God I'm so thankful for my family, for my friends, for people all over the world who might not know me personally, but have seen me maybe on the internet, maybe seen me on a podcast, and who are praying for me, praying for strong scans, praying for clarity, praying for strength, whatever it may be. I include that in my prayer list as well because I think that's really important. Because to your point of like why you do ask this, you get angry, you get mad, and you're never going to get that answer. So you kind of have to switch it in your brain and kind of just put that positivity of even if you don't have it, like just speak it into existence. And the you might not be positive today, but if you speak positivity into it, you to the next day, the following day, your whole outlook is going to change and how you view things might change a little bit differently. I know that's certainly true for me. Very angry, very bitter person a year ago. Um, couldn't talk about cancer probably, like I'm doing right now. And I didn't want to spend what little time that I may have left on this earth like that. And so when I really did hand myself over to God, be like, yeah, you can say that you did that and you're doing the steps, you're praying, but when you really hand your yourself over to God, that's when I noticed a change in me, to be honest with you.
Well, and I want to follow up on that a little bit because I think people practice that action in different ways. And some people practice that action and stop doing other things, stop pursuing cancer treatments. And I struggle with that. I'm an oncologist. I believe what we do matters, and I believe that is necessary. And other people hand themselves over, and that means something different. So when you say that, what does it mean for you?
When I say I hand myself over to God, it means that I don't have control. I'm a control freak. In every single sense in my job, probably my marriage, probably everything else. But this is out of my control. I can't do anything about this. And when I finally had grasp of that, that's when I let go and I'm letting God deal with whatever I have. Um, that does not mean that I'm stopping my treatments or I'm stopping my medicines or whatever. That all plays into it. I feel like your faith is one portion of it. The medicine is one portion of it. The technology and the trials and everything else that come along with the cancer diagnosis is part of it. And so you still have to show up both. You have to show up for your cancer treatments and you do have to show up in your faith too. Because as we mentioned, how are you going to speak it? And maybe it's not speaking into existence, but like, how are you going to receive some of these blessings? To my point, if you're not asking for them. And so you have to show up in both ways, medically and spiritually.
Well, I've also in myself noticed that if I pray for certain things, it at least frames my mind and my priorities, because the things that you're praying about kind of just become the things that are the most important to you. They're the things you're thinking about, they're front of your mind, and then those are the things that you're probably going to make action plans around. So that's one element that I found prayer helpful for me is if I sit and I intentionally think about the things that are most important to me, those are the things I'll use the most energy and time toward. And one thing that I think is nice about a lot of religious groups, not just Christianity, but that there's training specifically to look at the positive in something, be thankful for something, and then think about how can I help other people. And I think those elements, that lens, is a helpful way to view the world. And I'm not gonna, be the person that sits here and defends all things that religious organizations have done, but those are the tools that I've been given that have helped me and I've seen help other people. Is think about the positive in a negative situation, think about how that can be leveraged to help other people. And I think one thing I've noticed over and over again through this podcast, through my interactions with other patients, is the people who feel the most empowered are typically the people who have leveraged their suffering for the help of others. And I think there's something to that. I think there's some underlying mission or purpose to our reality that we're meant to serve other people. And people who are doing that to the best of their ability find solace even in chaos, even in terrible traumas, in cancer diagnoses where you don't have control, you don't know what the future is going to look like. And I'm not saying it gives that back, but I'm saying that those who find a way to leverage that suffering for the benefit of others seem to fare better emotionally.
I 100% agree with that. That's kind of how I like to spend my time too, is to your point, like, yeah, I'm hit with this strong dose of reality, right? But what can I do to kind of help? And I'm taking my pain and my sorrow and everything that I have gone through over the past year, and I'm trying to help somebody that may be in the same position that I'm in, or in the future could be very much in a similar situation as me as well. And so I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, I think there's definitely something to that. And it it not only makes me probably feel good about myself too, but I think I just want to help as many people as I can while I'm here too. Because it to your point about community as well, cancer community is really, really strong. And there's always it's I mean, it's inevitable. It's cancer is pretty much everywhere, you know. And so leaning on faith and then leaning on what I can do to help somebody else in need, it keeps me going. It really does keep me going, and gives me peace of mind, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And, switching topics a little bit, I want to make sure we cover those who are in religious organizations who have faith as an integral part of their identity navigate death frequently differently than those who may not, in that people tend to believe in an afterlife. I'm curious if you believe in an afterlife, and if so, what does that look like?
So first, I would want to say I've always had this weird death anxiety. It scares me.
Yeah.
It that is something that I can't control.
Mhm.
When I think about it, when I used to think about it, I should say, I just picture blackness, and I don't. It scares me. It takes over my body basically. I'm sure and I'm sure you've seen it. Maybe some of your patients have brought it up, but death anxiety is really, really weird. But I 100% believe in an afterlife. I have a strong faith presence in that. I've had some strange things happen to me. And I can speak on that if you want me to touch base on that. But whenever I was not first diagnosed, but I was probably mid treatment in chemo, and I was just having a hard cancer week. It was just tough. I was laying in my bed, and I was just crying, one of those ugly Kim K, cries that just takes place. And I was just talking to my grandma. My grandma and I were really, really, really close. She's always looked over me, and I was just saying, like, Grandma, if you're here with me, show me something. We going back to talking about show me signs. I was like, Grandma, if you're here with me, show me something. Show me signs. Show me the lights flickering. I don't know. Something crazy. Show me. Should lead with my husband's an electrician, so this is very out of the norm, but my lights started to flicker. And I said, Grandma, if that's you, flicker those lights. And she did. And then one of my friends who's also she's very deep in her faith. She's like, Sarah, that's a sign. You gotta go with it, take it, ask her, show you something that you're not gonna believe. And so I said my grandma's name was Doris, and I said, Grandma, if that was really you, show me something with the name Doris, because that is not a very common name, especially nowadays. That's you. I never met anybody else named Doris. So, we're we're watching this movie, my husband and I, that same week. We're watching The Town, and Ben Affleck goes, "Yeah, my grandma, Doris." And I kid you not, I had to pick my jaw off of the floor. And now every single time I'm very stressed out, I see her name. It might be on like a truck, or when I was visiting my sister in Colorado recently, there's a saint there, and she delivered water to children. I forgot the name of her off the top of my head, but we went up there, and I was having a hard time with cancer that week too. And I prayed, and I laid everything out on the tables, and I turn around. My grandma's full name was on a park bench up at the very top by that statue. And so I also don't think that's ironic.
Yeah.
I think that's very, maybe very strange to some, but it gives me comfort. I feel like she's there. I don't just pray to God. I pray to my grandma. I pray to my grandpa. I pray to my family members that have passed. My grandma was very, very faith-based as well. My 100-year-old grandma that just passed, and I just feel comfort in that. You know, we had these really tough conversations, and she always would instill in me that, yeah, there's more out there. There's got to be something more out there, and I truly believe that too. I don't think whenever I leave this earth, I mean, the shell of me might not be here, but my soul goes on. And I strongly believe that, because I feel like I have so many soul connections with some of my family members that have passed, and they show up in various ways. Maybe it's a light flicker. Maybe it's her name popping up on that movie, or I see it on a truck that's driving down the street. But there's something there. There's got to be something there. And I think that's what kind of puts me at bay is, no, hey, there might be something else out there. And that's kind of what I hold on to. I don't necessarily, the weird thing about having stage 4 cancer is I don't really get that death anxiety anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's because I'm living more than I did prior to my diagnosis, but I don't see it as darkness anymore. I really strongly believe that there's something else out there for us.
Yeah, I found that all those sentiments that you just described were one, that there is a greater community of people that you love, even if they've died, even if they've left this world, they're not gone. Because the feeling of loneliness is so ubiquitous throughout the cancer community. Even surrounded by people, your experience is so unique that it's hard to not feel lonely a lot of that time. And I think that feeling that the people that you grew up with, the people that you loved, that took care of you, are still in a way taking care of you, does provide solace. And there's also the sentiment that death feels final. And for those in a lot of religious communities that believe in afterlives, that finality element, it may be unknown, but it's probably, they don't believe it to be final. They believe it to be the end of this chapter. And then there are other chapters. And you may not know what those other chapters look like, but death is one step in a greater journey. And I think that's a little less scary. I'm not going to say it's not scary. I mean, I'm a religious person. I go to church every weekend, and death anxiety is very real for me. It's a scary, scary thing. But the belief that it's one chapter of potentially many, I think helps me struggle with the concept of mortality. And I've seen a lot of people who are at the end of life, and then they view that transition from this life to the next as really just that, as a beautiful transition. Their family comes together, everyone, is close, and it's not experienced alone, and it's experienced through the religious lens that they're going on to something better. And that's a really tough thing to navigate, as we don't have, documented proof of what happens after. And that is what faith is. But for a lot of people, they've really they've changed the narrative around something that is scary, negative, into we're chaperoning you to the next beautiful thing.
It's the unknown, like you said.
Yeah.
It's very scary. And I would be lying if I said that I'm not terrified. I still am very, very much terrified of that, what that looks like, what that means. Being so young, my husband's so young. He's going to be the person with he's going to be a young widow. I mean, he might be a widow in his 30s. My parents have to possibly put their child, um, in the ground before it's their time. Nobody wants that. It's a terrifying thing, but to your point, and I'm sure you've seen some of this too, but it also kind of brings me peace is I've been fortunate enough to be in those final hours with my grandma and my grandpa and things like that. And I'm sure hospice people in hospice see this all the time as well. Like, I saw my grandma reach for my grandpa and calling his name and telling me that my grandpa is sitting on her bed and everything else. And so, like, some people that might scare them, but for me, it does give me peace of mind that, hey, maybe your loved ones are going to be there for you when that time passes and it's your time to transition from this world to the next world into that afterlife. And that's what I hold on to. Um, and it does give me a little bit of peace of like, okay, well, I have a party actually that's on the other side that's going to be waiting for me because I have a very, very large family. And so, you know, I just try to think of that. And I think of the times and what I've seen when my loved ones have passed and how precious it is precious to see. And a lot of people can't be there during that final hour of when that does happen. But again, it brings me peace of mind knowing that that's a possibility that my grandma, both my grandmas, my grandpas, my aunts and uncles, they may be there waiting for me when that time comes.
Well, I think that element of positivity is as good a place to wrap up as any. And to further champion your mission of helping others and, dedicating your lives to making other people cope better with this, you've started a magazine. Maybe you could tell us a little more about it.
Yes. So I started a magazine literally like a month ago. It's called Cancer Unfiltered. And we do just that, Kyle. I mean, we go in and we give cancer patients the platform to tell their story. It doesn't matter what stage you are, stage 1 through 4. Are you a family member that's dealing with somebody that has cancer? We tell those stories because I think it's so important for people to see those and to read those. I wish I could have that first hand experience of looking at someone's story of where they were when they first got diagnosed to how they are now living years with cancer. Seeing that would have made the diagnosis, I think, a little less harsh of what we're dealing with, because just like death, the unknown, you don't know what you're going to deal with your cancer diagnosis either. You don't know what type of treatments you may go through. So having someone tell their story is critical in that. And it's really my life mission to help any and all that I can while I'm here. And very, very proud of it. The next issue is coming out for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we're not telling the typical breast cancer stories. We are showcasing and highlighting stage 4 thrivers. And I think that's really, really important. Many may not know, but I was diagnosed with de novo, just meaning stage 4 right off the bat. And so more and more younger people my age are being diagnosed with breast cancer at the de novo stage. And so getting my story out there and getting we call ourselves breasties, right? Getting my breasties and my sister stories out there. I know it's going to help somebody, and I know somebody needs to hear that message. And so I don't care if it's just one person that reads that publication, if that one person is helped by what I'm doing and spending my time and effort on doing, I did my job. And I'm proud to say that it has been that way. I've gotten emails of people wanting to submit their stories and tell their stories. I've had people reach out to me on Instagram, um, telling me that they want to tell their stories. And so that makes all of it worth it. And I'm very, very proud about that. And yeah, we only had that one issue, but there's more to come in terms of Cancer Unfiltered. And I can't wait to see what it leads to.
Well, looking forward to it. Where should people go to read it?
So right now we're working on building a website for Cancer Unfiltered, but to get the latest issues, you can follow Cancer Unfiltered magazine on Instagram right now.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for all the hard work you've done there and opening up about your religion. It's a very intimate topic, and it's hard to talk about, particularly to a large platform of individuals. And just thank you for sharing that vulnerability. For those listening, I hope this has helped you in some way. And our role is certainly not to try to indoctrinate anybody or convert anybody to our religion or any religion, rather to just show how it has been helpful for some individuals. Thank you all for listening. And Sara, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Kyle. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. To listen to more, you can go to crackingcancer.org. And if you enjoyed this podcast, leave a 5-star review. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Cracking Cancer. If you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, leave us a review, and visit crackingcancer.org for more information. Every dollar we earn goes directly to furthering the podcast and supporting vital cancer research. Because together, we can crack cancer.